Hi, this is Francisco Pulgar-Vidal with fkiQuality. Today I would like to speak with you about the problem of mismanaging with numbers. Quite often, when we are in a management situation, we need to compare numbers that will reflect the performance of our operation. Let's say that we are looking at numbers like these ones. An operational expense that we could be looking at every week or every 2 weeks or after a certain given and preset period of time. And the traditional way of doing this is to compare these numbers against the numbers that were maybe 1 year back, if there is some cyclicality in our business, or 1 quarter back, or anything like this. For the sake of simplicity, let's just compare these numbers against the one before. And so in this case, we would have an operational expense of $20,000, which then lowers to $18,000, and probably the manager of this function would say, that's a good thing, only to be surprised that the number then turn up to be $24,000, which will likely get us very close to a type of red situation. It's not marked as red, but it probably made the manager very nervous. However, in the next period, the numbers came down to 21, and the manager can again present to his director with a smile the fact that now we are containing costs. And even better, when the numbers get to a $15,000 of operational expense, which just happened to be in the threshold, that was the right number to have for this period, because this gets the manager a good end of this reporting period. He is now in the green, and the dashboard says so. What I have described to you just now is the traditional way of comparing operational results. And this is called pairwise comparison, or just a comparison between single values, one and another one. The problem with this is twofold. One is that we're comparing just two values without really looking at any trends or tendencies. Now, better software now and visualization packages allows us to see some trends. We've had that for some time now. Perhaps that part of the problem is better addressed. However, what is not addressed is the indisputable fact that there's going to be in any operation, in every operation, a certain amount of random variation in the conditions between one period and the next one. These numbers don't tell the whole story, right? There's a large number of things that are going on here which may have an impact on these numbers, but which could be attributed to what we call random variation, which unfortunately has the effect of clouding these comparisons. And we could very well be giving too much meaning to these values going down or up and down, when in reality they don't mean anything. The problem that I describe in here is the confusion between, or the misinterpretation between noise, which is due to the natural variation in a complex system of production, and the actual signal to take some action. In the image, we can see that we have now taken these numbers and turned them into a chart that shows on the vertical this weekly operational expense in thousands of dollars, and each one of the points going from left to right in the first section shows the 6 points that I just described in tabular form just a minute ago. And here it's pretty clear that there has been an important drop in operational expense. That should be, in the eyes of a manager, a cause for celebration, because clearly we can see that the numbers are coming down in period 5. However, there is a little blip on period 6 which perhaps would make the manager nervous again. In the next diagram, we can see how the story continues for 6 more reporting periods. But before we go all the way to the last one, observe the second one. The second one now is as high as the highest that we had before, at a value of about 23. This is a moment when the manager who just when he was able to report $15,000 in operational expense, and he had been quite happy, and he had congratulated his team, now the manager finds himself in a little bit of a difficult situation, where the team who had just done so well now seems to be unable to contain the cost. Because obviously, if the team has been able to operate with only $15,000 in operational expense, it would follow, more or less logically, in the mind of the manager, that perhaps now they should be able to continue to do so. But that is not the case. And now the numbers are high, and there's a meeting where the manager will feel very disappointed with the performance of the team and ask for more efforts and for creative ideas. As it happens, and as you can see in the balance of these 6 points, the numbers do, in general, get down, and everything seems to be just correct and fairly okay, at least for the time being. The next chart shows the third period of reporting, which now tells a completely different story. It's actually a terrible story, in which the numbers have increased 1, 2, 3 times, then there was a major dip, and then there was a tremendous increase in numbers. And we're actually getting close to the dreaded red zone as per the standards of reporting of our company. The manager then decides that he needs to have a all hands on deck type of meeting, get everybody to participate, try to convey the urgency of the situation, and assert, his leadership skills, and make sure everybody sees the urgency of what needs to happen. We're not entirely sure what needs to happen, but we have, hired the best and the brightest, myself included, and therefore we will figure it out one way or another. And as it happens, in the last chart, we can see how, indeed, the numbers went down fantastically. And we now have a much lower operating cost, which, by the way, seems to be sustaining pretty well around the margin that the manager uses or likes to see, which is somewhere between maybe an average of $20,000 per reporting period in operating expense. Everything is back to normal, and the main lesson that the manager has learned is that being kind of soft and rewarding people when they do something great sometimes backfires, and that if anything, is preferred to have all these kind of all hands on deck sessions, bring a little bit of the sense of urgency and the importance of our mission, assert the leadership which a manager naturally has, and that way control the numbers and really guide the teams on the right path. What I have described is a way of managing that you may say it's reflective or representative of using dashboards and using thresholds. So you could imagine that there is this green band of desirable performance where operating expense is low. There's a yellow band that is kind of acceptable but borderline, and there's a red band which must be avoided at all costs. And what we have seen in this report so far, and what you can see in the chart, is that indeed at one point we were in the green when we hit $15,000 in operational expense and everything was fine. But then the manager was really managing inside that yellow band, trying to kind of stay there out of trouble, so to speak. But unfortunately, at one point, we went into the red, and that's when we had this very urgent meeting, and some decisive action had to be taken. But the unfortunate thing about this is that, as I was saying at the beginning of the video, that these pairwise comparisons, these comparisons between single values, actually are clouded by the fact that the numbers could have changed for really no reason at all, no assignable reason. The variation is just due to a plethora of reasons, many of which are unknown and many of which are beyond our ability to manage. And so what the manager really needs, which is what we see in the next chart, is a different set of limits for comparison, what we call the natural process limits or the control limits of this chart, which are calculated from the natural variation that we see in all of the data points. These two lines, one just under 30, the top one, and the bottom one at about 11, describe a natural range of variation. And this describes the band within which we should expect these operational expenses to occur as a reflection of how we are running the operation. Of course, if there's a certain target that says that we should be, let's say, below 20,000, which at this point is about the average, what that requires is that there will be a major change in how we run the operation. But unfortunately, unless we start using control charts, which can alert us of the behavior of the process, filtering out all the noise and exposing only the signals to action, we will always be overreacting to these numbers in the same way that I just described. Only the control chart allows us to filter out the noise so that then we may look at the signals for action and then manage properly our operations. Thank you for your time.